The sky of Tarsus 4 burned with red light as explosions shook the ground. The war between humans and the Valorians had lasted for years, and this planet had become one of the most violent fronts. Ash fell like snow over broken machines, shattered buildings, and silent bodies. Among the smoke and fire, Lieutenant Aaron Cole moved carefully through the ruins. His armor was cracked, his rifle low on power, but his eyes were alert. He had been separated from his squad after a heavy blast. Now he was alone in enemy territory. His radio hissed softly with static. "Command, this is Cole. I'm still alive," he whispered. But there was no answer, only silence and the sound of distant thunder. Aaron's boots crunched over glass as he entered what once was a Valorian settlement. The war had destroyed everything. He remembered when this planet was full of forests and silver lakes. Now it was only smoke and pain. He paused when he heard something. A faint cry. Not mechanical. Not an echo. It sounded like a child. Aaron froze. He raised his weapon, scanning the shadows. The sound came again, weak and frightened. Against all reason, he followed it. Behind a half-collapsed wall, he found the source, a small Valorian child, no older than 6 by human standards. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and bright with fear. She was trapped under a metal beam, her thin arms trembling as she tried to move it. For a long moment, Aaron just stared. His orders were clear. Any Valorian presence was a threat. But as he looked at the child, he saw not an enemy, only someone scared and helpless. He dropped his rifle and rushed forward. Hey, easy," he said softly, though he knew she couldn't understand human words. He knelt and tried to lift the beam. It was heavy, but he managed to push it aside, freeing her leg. The child whimpered, but didn't run. She looked up at him with wide eyes, confused that a human, her enemy, had helped her. Aaron knelt beside her, checking her leg. The skin shimmered with faint silver blood. Valorians had blood rich with metallic elements. It was a deep wound, but not fatal. He tore a piece of cloth from his own uniform and wrapped it around her injury. "You'll be okay," he murmured. The ground shook again. Distant explosions echoed. Aaron knew he couldn't stay here long. He glanced toward the smoke on the horizon, the direction of his base, but then he looked back at the child. She wouldn't survive alone. He sighed. "All right, kid. You're coming with me." He lifted her gently. She tensed at first, then wrapped her small arms around his neck. Her breath was shallow, frightened, but she clung to him as if she sensed he meant no harm. Aaron moved fast, avoiding open ground. The air smelled of burnt metal. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning the ruins. He ducked behind a wall as a Valorian patrol passed nearby, tall armored figures with glowing blue visors. He held his breath, pressing the child close to his chest. One of the Valorian soldiers paused. Aaron could feel the tension rising. If they found him, both he and the child would be killed. But the soldier turned away, following the others. When they were gone, Aaron exhaled slowly. He looked at the little girl. "Looks like luck's still with us," he whispered. She blinked, tilting her head curiously, then made a soft chirping sound. It almost sounded like a thank you. They continued moving until they found an abandoned shelter beneath a broken transport ship. Inside it was dark and quiet. Aaron set her down and gave her his canteen. She sniffed at first, then drank carefully. Aaron sat beside her, tired and aching. For the first time in days, he felt something different. Not hatred, not fear, but a strange calm. He looked at the child and wondered who her parents were. Somewhere out there, maybe a Valorian mother was searching for her just as desperately as human families searched for lost children on Earth. The girl suddenly reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool, her expression curious. "Corey," she whispered in her own language. Aaron didn't know what it meant, but it sounded soft, kind. He smiled faintly. "Aaron," he said, pointing to himself. "Aaron." She repeated it, though it came out as Aaron. Then she smiled too. Despite everything, the war, the pain, the loss, there was a spark of hope in that small exchange. Night fell over Tarsus 4. The distant thunder of artillery continued, but inside the broken shelter, there was a fragile peace. Aaron stayed awake, listening to the hum of the wind. The child slept beside him, wrapped in his jacket. He thought about his orders, his duty, and what would happen if his commanders found out he had saved an enemy child. But deep inside, he knew he had done the right thing. Maybe war made people forget what it meant to be human. Maybe compassion was the one thing that could still make a difference. The next morning, Aaron heard engines in the sky. He stepped outside and saw Valorian aircraft scanning the ruins. They were looking for someone, probably for the child. He had to move again. He picked her up and began walking toward the neutral zone where human and Valorian territories met. If he could reach it, maybe he could hand her to peacekeepers. It was a dangerous path, but he couldn't abandon her. They traveled through forests of crystal trees, silent except for the wind. The girl sometimes hummed softly, a melody that sounded both sad and beautiful. Aaron didn't understand the words, but it gave him strength. After hours of walking, he stopped near a cliff. Below, he could see a wide river that marked the boundary line. On the other side lay human territory. Suddenly, a sharp sound pierced the air. A Valorian drone spotted them. A beam of blue light locked on his position. Aaron ran, holding the child close as plasma bolts struck around them. He slid down the slope, dirt and sparks flying. The drone fired again, hitting a rock near them. The child screamed. Aaron turned, grabbed his rifle and fired a single shot. The drone exploded in a flash of blue light, pieces raining down. But now more would come. He reached the riverbank, heart pounding. The current was strong, but it was the only way. "Hold on," he said. She clung tightly to him as he stepped into the cold water. They crossed slowly, each step a struggle. Behind them, the sky burned brighter as Valorian crafts approached. But before the ships could reach them, Aaron and the child disappeared into the trees on the human side. Exhausted, he collapsed near a fallen trunk. The girl leaned against him, trembling. He whispered softly, "You're safe now. I promise." Above them, stars began to appear through the smoke. Stars that belonged to neither race, shining equally over human and Valorian alike. Aaron looked up at them and felt something shift inside him. He had entered this war believing that mercy was weakness. Now he knew it was strength. Somewhere far away, on the Valorian flagship orbiting Tarsus 4, Commander Sarai Valen received a report. A human soldier had rescued her missing daughter from the battlefield. The moment she heard it, her heart stopped. An enemy had protected what she loved most, and from that moment on, she swore she would find that human, not to destroy him, but to understand why. For 3 long days, Lieutenant Aaron Cole hid deep inside the human-controlled forest zone with the Valorian child. He had given her food rations, wrapped her wounds, and tried to teach her small human words. She was recovering fast, though she often looked toward the sky, missing her home. Aaron had learned her name from the strange humming sound she made whenever he said you. Her name was Lyra. Sometimes she would draw in the dirt with a stick, showing strange Valorian symbols, her family, her city, and the shape of stars. Aaron didn't understand the language, but he understood the feeling. Lyra was telling him she wanted to go home. He wished he could help her, but the war made everything impossible. That night, as he sat beside a weak fire, his radio suddenly crackled to life. "Lieutenant Cole, this is Delta Command. Where the hell have you been?" Aaron grabbed it quickly. "Command, I'm alive. Stranded beyond Grid 6, I have a situation." Static filled the line for a second. Then came the reply. "Report." Aaron looked at Lyra, sleeping peacefully beside him, her tiny hand holding his torn jacket. He took a deep breath. "I found a Valorian civilian. A child, she was trapped. I couldn't leave her." There was silence. Then the voice came again, colder now. "Repeat that, Lieutenant." "I said I saved a Valorian child." Another pause. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Those creatures," Aaron interrupted firmly. "She's not a creature. She's a child. And she's scared." The voice on the radio grew harder. Your duty is to the human alliance, not to the enemy's offspring. Stay where you are. A retrieval unit will find you. The line went dead. Aaron stared at the radio, heart pounding. He knew what that meant. Retrieval didn't always mean rescue. Sometimes it meant silence to keep inconvenient acts hidden from public eyes. He glanced at Lyra. He couldn't let them take her. At dawn, he packed what little food he had left and decided to move again. There was an old communication station near the border that might allow him to send a message to the Peace Council directly, above the military's control. As they walked through the forest, Lyra pointed toward the sky again and whispered something in her soft voice. Mara. Aaron guessed it meant mother. Yes, he said gently. We'll find her, I promise. Meanwhile, on the Valorian flagship, Commander Scifi stood on the bridge of her silver warship, looking down at the planet below. Her mind was restless, her heart heavy. Her daughter Lyra had been missing for 6 days. Every soldier had searched. But only fragments of data were found, traces of human activity near the ruins. Then a report came through an intercepted human broadcast. A soldier had rescued a Valorian child during combat. The description matched Lyra. Sarai's breath caught in her chest. The thought that a human, their enemy, had saved her child was something she could hardly believe. For years she had seen humans as destroyers, cold and merciless. Now she was not so certain. Prepare a tracking probe, she ordered. I want that soldier found. Her second-in-command hesitated. Commander, if the humans know you're searching, it could be seen as a sign of weakness. Sarai's gaze hardened. If caring for life is weakness, then maybe we have forgotten what strength truly is. Back on Tarsus, Aaron and Lyra reached the old communication outpost by midday. The place was broken but still had power. He began repairing the main console, hoping he could transmit before the retrieval team arrived. Lyra explored the room, curious about every light and sound. She found a small music player, pressed a button, and soft human music filled the air. She laughed for the first time, a sound light and pure. Aaron smiled at her joy. It was a small reminder that peace could exist even in the middle of war. When the console finally flickered to life, Aaron opened a secure channel. He recorded a message for both sides of the conflict, something that, if heard, might change everything. This is Lieutenant Aaron Cole of the Human Alliance, he began. I have rescued a Valorian child named Lyra. She is alive and unharmed. I refuse to hand her over to be used for politics or propaganda. She is not an enemy. She is a child, just like any human child who laughs, cries, and dreams. He paused, his voice steady but full of emotion. If this message reaches anyone, human or Valorian, let it be proof that mercy can exist even in war. We don't have to destroy everything to win. He ended the recording and sent it to multiple frequencies, open channels that both sides could receive. After that, he felt strangely calm. He had done what his conscience demanded, but peace never came easily. Within minutes, motion sensors warned of approaching aircraft. The retrieval team had arrived. Aaron grabbed his rifle and turned toward Lyra. Hide, he whispered. She obeyed instantly, crawling behind a console. 3 armored human soldiers entered the outpost. Their commander, a tall man named Captain Duran, lowered his helmet visor. Lieutenant Cole, you're under review for violation of combat protocol. Aaron stood tall, though he felt his heart beating fast. You don't understand, Captain. She's just a child. Duran's eyes were cold. She's the enemy's blood. Command wants her for questioning. Hand her over. Aaron shook his head slowly. No. The tension grew thick. Duran raised his weapon slightly. Don't make this harder, Cole. You're a good soldier. But this is treason. Before Aaron could answer, a bright blue light filled the sky outside. Both men looked up through the cracked roof as a Valorian ship descended, its engines humming like thunder. Valorians! One soldier shouted. Duran cursed. We're getting out of here. He signaled for retreat, but Aaron didn't move. The Valorian craft landed nearby, its hull glowing. The doors opened and tall figures stepped out, one of them wearing silver armor that shone like light. It was Commander Scifi herself. Aaron stood frozen as she approached, her eyes locked on him. She spoke in clear, accented English. Human soldier, where is my daughter? Aaron hesitated, then motioned to the console. Lyra peeked out, saw her mother, and cried out with joy. Mara! Sarai's stern face softened as she ran forward and knelt. embracing her daughter tightly. Tears shimmered in her eyes, something rare for a Valorian commander. "Lyra, my heart," she whispered in her own language. Aaron lowered his weapon, feeling relief wash over him, but the human soldiers were panicking. "Captain, we can't let them take her," one shouted. Duran aimed at the Valorians, but Sarai raised her hand, her voice calm yet powerful. "No one will be harmed. The human who protected my daughter, he has shown more honor than your entire army." Aaron stepped forward. "We don't have to keep killing each other. This child proves we're not as different as we think." Duran looked uncertain, but before he could reply, his communicator beeped. The message from Aaron's transmission had spread. Across the human command channels, the video of Aaron shielding the alien child was already being seen by thousands of soldiers and civilians. All over the network, people began to talk. Many were confused, others angry, but some, just some, were moved. For the first time, both humans and Valorians heard a message that was not made of threats or orders, but of compassion. Sarai turned to Aaron. "You risked your life for her," she said softly. "Why?" Aaron looked at her with tired eyes. "Because someone had to remember what it means to be human." Sarai held his gaze, and for a moment neither race nor war mattered. There was only understanding, deep and wordless. Then she nodded. "You have done something that will not be forgotten, Aaron Cole." Her ship's engines roared again. She carried Lyra inside, then looked back once more. "This war may soon change," she said. "Because of you." As the Valorian craft rose into the sky, Aaron stood alone among the trees, the wind carrying away the smoke of battle. He didn't know if peace would come, but he knew that one act of kindness had begun something far greater than himself. The war above Tarsus IV had slowed, but it was far from over. After the broadcast of Lieutenant Aaron Cole's message, both humans and Valorians found themselves questioning the same thing. What did it truly mean to be enemies? For the human alliance, Aaron had become a problem. For the Valorians, he had become a mystery. And for Commander Sarai Valen, he had become something much more. A ripple. Across the stars, Sarai watched from her ship as reports arrived from every region. The image of a human soldier shielding her daughter from danger had spread faster than any weapon could. Valorian civilians, who once believed all humans were monsters, now whispered a new word, Kori. It meant protector. Sarai's daughter Lyra used that word every day. She drew pictures of Aaron, her blue hands pressing colors on transparent screens. "Kori saved me," she told the officers shyly. "Kori is brave." Those words touched even the coldest warriors, yet, in the Valorian High Council, Sarai's kindness was seen as a weakness. Many demanded revenge for the losses the war had caused. They warned her that sympathy could destroy discipline, but Sarai was not like the others. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. The human soldier who had saved her daughter could have used her as a shield or bargaining chip, but he hadn't. He had chosen compassion over survival, and that single act had changed Sarai's heart. She stood on the bridge, gazing out into space. Her aide, Captain Verone, spoke softly beside her. "Commander, the council expects you to return to the capital for debriefing." Sarai nodded slowly. "Tell them I will come, but not yet. There is something I must do first." Varen hesitated. "You mean the human?" Her silver eyes glowed faintly. "Yes, I must meet him. Not as a soldier, but as a mother." Meanwhile, on the human side, Aaron Cole sat quietly inside a small military tent, hands cuffed to the table. Across from him, a stern officer from the Alliance Command read through his report. "You disobeyed direct orders," the officer said coldly. "You aided the enemy. You shared communication channels with an alien force. Do you understand what that means, Lieutenant?" Aaron met his gaze calmly. "Yes, sir. It means I saved a child." The officer slammed the file shut. "You embarrassed the Alliance. Do you know how many soldiers are questioning their loyalty because of your broadcast?" Aaron took a slow breath. "Maybe they're questioning the right things." The officer frowned, then stood. "You'll be transferred to an isolated base for evaluation. Until then, you are suspended from all active duty." Aaron didn't resist. He had expected this. He was tired of fighting anyway. Not just the enemy, but the endless hate that seemed to feed the war. That night, as guards escorted him to a secure transport, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the little Valorian girl was safe. That thought gave him peace. He didn't know that someone was already searching for him. The arrival, 3 days later, as his transport traveled through the outer atmosphere, alarms suddenly rang. "Unknown ship approaching," shouted the pilot. Aaron looked out through the small window and froze. A sleek silver vessel, Valorian design, was closing in fast. Its markings were unmistakable, the insignia of Commander Sarai Valen. "Evasive maneuvers," the pilot cried, but the Valorian ship didn't fire. Instead, it sent a message through the comm system. "This is Commander Sarai Valen of the Valorian fleet. I seek Lieutenant Aaron Cole. No harm will come to your crew." The human officers hesitated. They had never heard a Valorian speak like that. It wasn't a demand, it was a request. Aaron stepped forward. "Let me talk to her." The pilot shook his head. "Are you insane? She's the enemy." Aaron's eyes were calm. "She's Lyra's mother." After a tense moment, the pilot opened the channel. Sarai's image appeared on the screen, tall, graceful, her armor shimmering like moonlight. "Lieutenant," she said in clear English, her voice steady but gentle. "I request an audience." Aaron's heart beat faster. "Commander, your daughter is safe. I'm glad." "I know," she replied softly. "Because of you." There was silence for a moment. Then Sarai spoke again. "I want to meet you face to face. No weapons, no soldiers. Only truth." Aaron hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right." The two ships moved toward a neutral moon nearby, a quiet gray place untouched by war. They landed at opposite ends of a wide plain of dust and crystal stones. Aaron stepped out first, escorted only by a single officer. Sarai did the same, her long cloak moving in the soft wind. They walked toward each other, cautious yet curious, until they stood a few meters apart. The meeting, for a long time, neither spoke. They just looked, two warriors from worlds that had taught them to hate each other. Finally, Sarai broke the silence. "When I first saw your message, I did not believe it. I thought it was a trick." Aaron smiled faintly. "Most people did. But then," she continued, "I saw my daughter in your arms. I saw the way you shielded her. That moment." She paused, her voice quiet. "It changed me." Aaron looked down for a second, unsure what to say. "I didn't think about orders. I just saw someone who needed help." Sarai's eyes softened. "That is what my people forgot. In trying to win the war, we forgot how to feel." They stood in silence again, the stars shining above them. "I came here," Sarai said finally, "not to ask for thanks or apologies. I came to understand." "Understand what?" Aaron asked. "Why a human taught to hate my kind would risk his life for my child." Aaron looked at the horizon. "Because I'm tired of this war. Because every time I looked at the destruction, I kept thinking, there must be another way. And when I saw your daughter crying in the rubble, I couldn't walk away. No one with a heart could." Sarai's eyes shimmered with quiet emotion. She took a slow step closer. "You remind me that even in darkness, light can appear in unexpected places." Aaron met her gaze. "Maybe that's true for both our species." For the first time, Sarai smiled, a small, genuine smile. "Lyra speaks of you often. She calls you Kori." "I guessed it meant protector," Aaron said softly. "It does," she replied, "and she says you are her hero." Aaron felt warmth spread through his chest. "She's brave. Braver than most adults I've met." They talked for a while about their worlds, their people, and the long road of suffering both sides had walked. It was strange how easy it became once they stopped seeing each other as enemies. When they finally parted, Sarai said something unexpected. "Lieutenant, the Council will not forgive me for this meeting. But I do not care. I have made my decision." Aaron frowned slightly. "What decision?" "To seek peace," she said simply. "Even if it costs me everything." Aaron looked at her, realizing the risk she was taking. "You'd stand against your own people for that?" She nodded. "And you?" He gave a small smile. "I already did." Sarai extended her hand, a gesture rare among Valorians. Aaron hesitated for a second, then took it. Her hand was cool, her grip strong. In that moment, two enemies became something different, symbols of hope. A new path. When Sarai returned to her ship, she found Lyra waiting. The child ran into her arms. "Mara, did you see Kori?" Sarai smiled softly. "Yes, my little star. I saw him. Will he come to visit?" the girl asked hopefully. Sarai looked out at the stars. Maybe one day, when there is no more war. But deep inside, she knew that day might not be far away. She had seen a human's courage, and it had awakened something powerful, a belief that peace was possible. On the human side, Aaron sat quietly in his quarters, replaying the memory of their meeting. For the first time in years, he felt purpose again, not as a soldier, but as a bridge between two worlds. He didn't know what would come next, but he was ready, because sometimes one act of kindness could start a revolution. The stars over Tarsus IV shone brighter than ever, but the ground below remained scarred by years of war. The forests were blackened, cities silent, and rivers carried dust instead of water. Yet somewhere in that broken world, a quiet hope had begun to bloom. Lieutenant Aaron Cole's actions had become a symbol. Some called him a traitor, others a hero. His message had traveled beyond military channels, reaching colonies, refugee camps, and even the homeworlds of both races. Many had seen the image of him holding the alien child. For some, it was a sign of weakness, but for others, it was proof that compassion still existed among the stars. Whispers of change on the Human Alliance base, tension hung like smoke. Soldiers argued in the mess halls. Some said Aaron had risked everything for nothing. Others said he had done what true soldiers should have done all along, protected life. Aaron, still under observation, spent his days in quiet work repairing damaged drones and his nights looking at the stars. He was not allowed to leave the base, but he didn't mind. He knew change often took time. He was surprised when one morning the base commander came to see him. "Cole," the man said gruffly, "someone from the Peace Committee wants to meet you. They're asking for a private conversation." Aaron frowned. "Who?" The commander's tone softened. "You'll find out soon enough." 2 hours later, Aaron was on a transport ship heading toward the Neutral Dome, a large structure orbiting between human and Valorian space. It was a place where both sides occasionally met for diplomatic talks, though peace had never lasted long before. But this time felt different. The Neutral Dome. The dome was built from transparent alloy. From inside, one could see the curve of the planet below and the shining lines of ships parked at a safe distance. The air was quiet, almost sacred, as if the place had been waiting for something, someone, to give it meaning. Aaron was led into a wide chamber lit by soft blue light. Across the room stood Commander Scifi, tall and calm, her silver armor replaced by a ceremonial robe. Her daughter Lyra was beside her, holding her hand. Aaron froze for a moment, surprised but also deeply moved. The child smiled brightly when she saw him. "Curry," she said, running forward before the guards could stop her. Aaron knelt, catching her in his arms. "Hey, little one," he said gently. "You've grown a bit since last time." Sarai approached slowly, her expression softer than before. "She has not stopped talking about you," she said. "Every night she asks if we will meet the human again." Aaron smiled at Lyra, then looked up at Sarai. "I wasn't expecting this meeting." "Nor was I," she replied. "But after our last conversation, things began to move faster than either of us imagined." The council's proposal, a group of human and Valorian diplomats, entered the chamber soon after. They greeted one another stiffly, their faces wary. For centuries, their people had faced each other only through the sights of weapons. A human official spoke first. "This meeting has been called to discuss the possibility of a ceasefire on Tarsus IV. A Valorian elder nodded. "We have all seen what your soldier did, and what our commander witnessed. It has made us question much." Aaron stood quietly, not sure if he should speak. He wasn't a diplomat, he was just a soldier who made a choice. Sarai glanced at him, then addressed the council. "My daughter's life was saved by this man. Because of him, I began to see the truth, that this war has blinded both sides. We are not enemies by nature, only by history." The room fell silent. Everyone listened. Aaron finally spoke, his voice steady but humble. "I don't know politics, but I know what I saw out there. A child crying in fear, a world burning. And for what? We fight because we're told to. But maybe we've forgotten why we started. Maybe we can still stop before there's nothing left." His words were simple, but they carried power. Even the most hardened officers looked thoughtful. For the first time, the walls between them began to crack. The shadows of resistance. However, not everyone wanted peace. Outside the dome, in the depths of space, a rogue fleet from both sides plotted in secret. They called themselves the Pure Flame, a group of extremists who believed peace was betrayal. They had seen the broadcasts and hated everything Aaron and Sarai represented. To them, compassion was weakness and mercy was dangerous. As the meeting inside the dome continued, the pure flame prepared to strike, the threat inside the dome. Lyra played quietly with a small light orb, sitting beside her mother and Aaron. It was a rare, almost peaceful moment, but suddenly alarms blared across the chamber. "Unidentified ships incoming," shouted a guard. "They're not responding to signals." Everyone stood. Through the transparent walls, dark ships appeared from the shadows of space, engines burning red. Aaron's instincts kicked in. "We need to move the civilians to the lower levels." Sarai nodded, activating her communicator. "This is Commander Valen. Prepare defense drones. No one fires unless necessary." The dome shook as the rogue ships began firing plasma bursts toward the shields. The transparent glass turned bright white with impact. Aaron grabbed Lyra's hand. "Come on, stay behind me." Sarai stood beside him, her eyes glowing with determination. "They want to destroy what we built," she said quietly. "We cannot let them." Side by side, human and Valorian soldiers began to defend the dome together. It was a sight no one had ever seen before. Two species once at war, now fighting together against those who refused peace. Aaron manned one of the defense turrets. Sarai gave commands in her language, her voice clear and powerful. Drones shot through the air, intercepting enemy missiles. "Shields at 40%, a technician yelled. "We can't take another hit." Aaron looked at Sarai. "If we lose power, this whole place will fall." Sarai nodded grimly. "Then we stop them before that happens." She stepped to the control panel, overriding the dome's outer defenses. "We can link the human and Valorian energy grids," she said. "Combined, they can double the shield strength." A human officer looked doubtful. "That's never been tested." Aaron turned to him. "Then let's test it now." The plan worked. The combined power caused the dome's shields to glow gold, strong enough to push back the enemy fire. One by one, the rogue ships began to retreat, but before the last one fled, it fired a single missile straight toward the dome's heart. The impact was huge. The shields held, but the explosion tore through one section of the outer ring. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the air. Aaron rushed toward the damaged area. A beam had fallen, trapping one of the human officers. "Help!" the man shouted. Aaron tried lifting it but couldn't move it alone. Then Sarai appeared beside him. Together they lifted the beam, freeing the officer. Their eyes met, both tired but alive. When the danger finally passed, the dome was scarred but still standing. The attack had failed. The extremists had been defeated not by weapons but by unity. A moment of peace hours later, the diplomats gathered again. The air was heavy with smoke but also with something new: respect. They had all seen what cooperation could do. The human general turned to Sarai and Aaron. "You two saved this dome, and maybe the future of both our species." Sarai replied calmly, "We did what was right. Nothing more." Lyra, sitting nearby, looked between them and smiled. "Kori and Mara, together." Aaron laughed softly. "Out of the mouths of children, huh?" Sarai smiled too. "Sometimes they understand better than we do." The councils agreed to extend the ceasefire indefinitely. A new committee was formed, made up of both humans and Valorians, to begin peace talks. When the meeting ended, Sarai and Aaron stood near the viewing window, watching the stars. The war that had lasted for decades might finally be ending. Sarai spoke quietly. "When I first met you, I saw only an enemy. Now I see a friend, and perhaps something more." Aaron looked at her, surprised. "Something more?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked out at the stars and said, "Maybe the universe wanted us to meet. Not to fight, but to remind both our worlds what it means to care." Aaron nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure it remembers." As the dome floated quietly between two civilizations, it became a symbol of something powerful. Not victory, not conquest, but hope. A human soldier's mercy and an alien mother's courage had built a bridge across the stars. And though the future was uncertain, one thing was clear: the divide between enemies was finally beginning to fade. The neutral dome glowed softly against the endless black of space. Outside, the stars stretched like a blanket of light, reflecting the fragile hope that had begun to grow between two warring civilizations. Within the dome, Humans and Valorians worked together for the first time in decades, planning not for war but for peace. Lieutenant Aaron Cole walked among them, his uniform dusty, his hands tired but his heart lighter than it had been in years. Beside him, Commander Sarai Valen moved with a quiet authority, her presence calm yet commanding. And somewhere close by, Lyra ran through the corridors laughing freely, her small hands brushing the air as if she could catch the stars themselves. It was a strange world now, still scarred, still fragile, but alive in a way it hadn't been in decades. And Aaron understood that every small step mattered. Rebuilding trust. The first task of the new Joint Committee was simple, yet monumental. Rebuild the trust between humans and Valorians. Both sides had spent years teaching their people to hate each other, and undoing that required more than speeches. It required action. Aaron and Sarai visited refugee zones together, bringing food, medicine, and hope. Soldiers who once aimed weapons at each other now worked side by side, clearing debris, repairing buildings, and teaching children that life could continue beyond war. Lyra often followed them, her bright blue eyes observing every act, every gesture. She had become a small symbol of unity, proof that kindness could bridge the deepest divides. In one such settlement, Aaron held a small human girl in his arms while teaching her to build a simple solar lantern. Across the room, a young Valorian boy mimicked his movements, laughing when the lantern flickered to life. Sarai watched from the doorway, her hand resting lightly on Aaron's shoulder. "You understand," she said softly, "that these moments are more important than battles. One act of care can ripple further than 100 victories." Aaron smiled. "I've learned that now. Sometimes saving a life is the only battle worth fighting." The challenge of skeptics. Not everyone welcomed this new era. Extremists from both sides had survived the recent attacks and continued to plot. They spread rumors, painted acts of cooperation as weakness, and tried to stir old hatred. One morning during a council meeting, a human general slammed his fist on the table. "Cole, are you seriously putting the fate of entire colonies in the hands of aliens? After everything they've done?" Aaron met his gaze calmly. "And after everything we've done, do you not see that continuing this cycle will only destroy more lives? We have proof now that compassion can save lives. That is more than evidence, it is a choice." The room fell silent. Even the general, known for his stubbornness, could not refute the logic. Sarai added her voice, steady and clear. "We can fight endlessly, or we can build something lasting. You all decide which future you want to leave to your children." The words hung in the air like a promise. Some officers nodded reluctantly while others scowled. But no one could ignore the truth. A journey together, days turned into weeks. Aaron and Sarai worked tirelessly to establish secure communication channels, relief programs, and training centers where human and Valorian youth learned together. They spent hours talking about their experiences, their losses, and their hopes. With each conversation, they learned more about each other and more about themselves. Lyra often sat between them, holding Aaron's hand while listening to Sarai explain Valorian history. The child asked endless questions, always curious, always eager to learn. One evening, after a long day of negotiations, Aaron and Sarai stood together on a balcony overlooking the dome. "The people may eventually forget the wars we fought," Aaron said quietly, "but they won't forget the first steps we took toward peace." Sarai nodded. "And they won't forget courage, not just in battle, but in choosing kindness when it was easier to choose anger." Aaron glanced at her, a soft smile on his lips. "You've changed my world, Sarai, more than anyone or anything ever could. And you've reminded me," she said, "that even in the darkest moments, humanity and Valorian hearts can still shine." They stood in silence, watching the stars. Above them, Lyra's laughter echoed from the hallway, a sound that felt like sunlight after a storm. The shadows linger, but peace was never simple. Rogue factions from the pure flame still lingered on the edges of space. They attacked supply ships, sabotaged settlements, and whispered lies to reignite hatred. Aaron and Sarai knew the threat could not be ignored. Together, they organized joint patrols and quick response teams. Humans and Valorians trained side by side, learning from each other's tactics and technology. Through these efforts, the extremists were gradually pushed back. Each victory was quiet, without celebration, but each made the fragile peace a little stronger. During one mission, Aaron saved a Valorian soldier caught in an ambush. The soldier, barely able to speak, managed a weak salute. Aaron replied with a nod. It was a small gesture, but it mattered. One act of care could ripple outward, just like Lyra's smile. Just like Aaron shielding her on the battlefield. A quiet moment after another long day, Aaron returned to his quarters to find Lyra waiting for him. "Corey," she said softly, holding a small crystal she had picked up in the forest. "Look what I found." Aaron knelt beside her. The crystal shimmered with colors like the sunrise on Tarsus 4. "It's beautiful," he said. "Just like you." Lyra giggled and hugged him. "Mara says you're her hero too," she said. "Not just mine," Aaron smiled. "Then I have to be brave for both of you." Sarai appeared at the door, looking at them with a soft smile. "The future is being built not by soldiers, but by those who care enough to protect life," she said quietly. Aaron looked at her. "And sometimes it's those who see a child in danger that remind everyone what's worth fighting for." Sarai nodded. "Exactly." The first steps toward Unity months passed. Human and Valorian children played together in new learning centers. Markets reopened where both species sold goods side by side. Communication lines that had once been monitored for spying were now used for cultural exchange, storytelling, and shared music. Aaron often visited these centers, teaching human kids about strategy and technology while Sarai taught Valorian kids about their history and art. Lyra, naturally, became a guide between worlds, introducing friends to each other, pointing out differences, and laughing at misunderstandings. One day, as Aaron and Sarai watched a group of children from both species play together, Sarai said softly, This is the promise we made." Aaron smiled. "Yes, and it's only the beginning." For the first time, both felt a sense of peace that was not fragile, not temporary, but built on courage, empathy, and understanding. The legacy of compassion years later, historians would write about the war on Tarsus 4. They would remember the battles, the loss, and the pain. But they would also remember the human soldier who refused to let a child die, the alien mother who saw his courage and chose to believe in something greater, and the child whose laughter bridged the divide between worlds. Aaron's act of mercy became a symbol, and from it a new era of cooperation began. The scars of war remained, but the hearts of humans and Valorians were forever changed. Sarai and Aaron remained close, leaders, friends, and something quietly more, knowing that the choices they made in a moment of courage had shaped a future where life was valued above conflict. And Lyra, ever curious, ever hopeful, grew up knowing that even in a universe filled with darkness, one small act of kindness could light a path across the stars. The stars over Tarsus 4 twinkled gently, as if the universe itself acknowledged the promise that had been made, a promise beyond war, beyond hatred, beyond fear, and it began with one human who chose to protect a child, proving that even in the deepest conflicts, the light of compassion could never be extinguished.